안녕하십니까. 바로 이어서 2부가 시작이 됩니다. 자리에 앉아 계시면 저희가 바로 다음 순서를 안내해 드리겠습니다. 저는 푸드텍 스타트업 디플란트의 글로벌 총괄 이사를 맡고 있는 최재하 이사입니다. 반갑습니다. 네, 박수 쳐주세요. 네. 이번 세션은 영어로 진행이 됩니다. 혹시 통역이 필요하신 분들은 의자 뒤쪽에 붙어 있는 QR 스티커를 스캔하시면 바로 실시간으로 통역 서비스를 받으실 수 있으시고요. 저쪽 관객 뒤쪽에 계신 분들은 양쪽에 X 배너에 통역 서비스 QR 코드가 있으니 참고해 주시기 바랍니다. If you'd like to have any translation service, there is a QR sticker on behind of each chair. Please use that link. 자, 이번 시간에는 아까 오전 시간에 이어서 두 번째 Globalization Guidebook 2의 패널 토크 시간을 갖겠습니다. 아시아 벤처 캐피탈 시장은 앞으로 세계적으로 빠르게 성장하고 있고 스타트업들에게 좋은 기회들을 제공하고 있습니다. 이번 세션의 패널 분들은 일본 그리고 싱가포르 VC 시장에서 풍부한 경험과 그리고 인사이트를 제공드릴 보유한 전문가들입니다. Let's welcome Mr. Takeru, Kawashima, and John Kim and Kwon to the stage with a round of applause. 박수 부탁드립니다.
Welcome everyone. I hope you are enjoying the day 2 of COMEUP. So I'm Kwon from COMEUP. So I'll be your moderator for this session today. So before we start, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the Ministry of SMEs and COMEUP team for giving us the opportunity to have this kind of a conversation. And moreover, I would like thanks to everyone in the audience. Actually, your presence shows how this topic is important for our startup ecosystem. So during my 15 years experience helping startups expand their business globally, I've learned something very critical. Having a great product is important, but without the investment, it's like having a Ferrari without no fuel. So it looks very impressive, but in your garage, it cannot go anywhere. So this is especially true for Korean startup entering other Asian market. We often have the technology and the innovation, but securing investment from the overseas is superbly difficult. So that's the real challenge for the Korean startup for the global expansion beginning. So that's why today we are fortunate to have two seasoned investors who can help us crack the code. So from Japan, Takeru Kawashima of Zero One Booster, and from Singapore, we have John Lim of Meet Ventures. Please welcome both of the investors with a big round of applause. So Takeru, let me start with you. So tell us more about your story and then Zero One Booster, and then what kind of innovation you are looking for.
Okay, so thank you so much for your moderation and thank you so much for this great opportunity inviting me here. And anyway, I'm Takeru Kawashima, the Executive Director of Zero One Booster. So let me quickly introduce about my company. Zero One Booster is a Japanese ecosystem builder operated since 2012. And so far we have learned a lot of things, including accelerators, venture capital funds, startup studio, and we supported like 600 startups by 60 acceleration programs. And for Korean startups, I think this year was quite momentum time for us because we worked a lot with Korean accelerators and startups for helping them to get into Japanese markets. So I think maybe we could do more in next year. And looking forward to having a discussion today.
Okay.
Thank you.
So definitely you are the one for Korean startups who want to enter the Japanese market, right?
Yeah, because I think this is going to be the main agenda today, but it's so challenging for foreign startups to get into the next market. It's same for Japanese companies too.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What about John? Tell me about your story and then the Meet Ventures.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so very happy to be here today to share more about Meet Ventures and Singapore and the Southeast Asia ecosystem. Yeah, so for Meet Ventures, we started in 2019, and so far we have been helping government agencies, MNCs, to run their startup programs. So things like accelerator programs and all that. We also have a VC fund, so we invest in early stage startups, all the way from angel to pre-A and Series A. So our ticket size is about 100 to 500,000 USD, and we invest across various sectors. So up till today, I think Meet Ventures, we have also worked with many different Korean organizations. We have ran about 9 different programs and supported 90 over startups from Korea to expand into the Southeast Asia region. So happy to share more about this later on.
Okay, thanks for sharing. So before we dive into the serious stuff, let me make some like a casual question. So I believe you have experienced the countless like pitches from startup. So what is the most unforgettable pitches from the startup in the good way and in a bad way, like what the hell? Yeah, from Takeru, yeah.
So unforgettable pitching, right,
Yes.
from startups. I think every pitching for investors or for accelerators, every pitching looks quite interesting and important because I also used to be entrepreneur and run my own software company and exited. So I know like feelings of entrepreneurs, like they do every effort, they take every effort to attract investments or customers, and they do everything for that. So I always appreciate pitching and everything. But if I don't know, take some examples. So I think pitching from Japanese startups or Korean startups or Singaporean startups, I think everything a little bit different, like maybe culturally or I don't know, strategically different. So in Japan, in general, like pitching always have some stories like our vision or like why I'm doing this and what is my future vision or something like that. So I think in general, we cares a lot about that vision part. Yeah. So good pitching shows a lot of good stories about vision, and bad pitching is always only about technology or something. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
What about you, John?
Yeah, I think the most impressive pitch that I've heard was for this company called Iron Yun. So they are actually Taiwanese founders that went to US, and why it really stood out to me was because of number one, the founders' background. So the founders themselves had 2 exits, and the previous company listed on Nasdaq. So I think 2 IPOs previously, and this is their 3rd company. So the founders' background really stood out to me. And second thing is that they already had a very good traction right from the start with clients like NVIDIA and a very large market size. So I think that's another thing that really stood out to me. And I think from a more generic, I would say, overview, most startups that have very good pitches, they also fall into these 2 categories. They have very good founders and either very good traction or a very large market.
Okay, thank you. Then here's the serious stuff. So as everybody knows, actually for Korean startups, it's superbly difficult to getting the fund from the overseas VC, especially the Southeast Asia and Japan as well. So I would like to hear from John first, what makes you hesitate to make the investment to Korean startups?
Okay, thanks for the question. So actually for Meet Ventures, we are very open to investing in Korean startups. And I think most VCs in Singapore are also very open to invest in Korean startups. Why is this so? Firstly, if you look at the population of Singapore, we only have 6 million people in Singapore, and actual citizens only 3.5 million. So what this means is that we are actually a very small country, And because of that, all the startups in Singapore, from day one, they are looking to expand overseas. And similarly, all the VCs in Singapore are also looking to invest overseas. So if you are a Korean startup and you are looking to raise funds, Singapore might be a good country to look at because I think most of the VCs here will be open to looking at you if you have a good pitch.
I see. But as far as you know, the fund in Singapore and Southeast Asia, they are regionally binded and have limitation to make some like investment to the other region. Is that true, or is there any like a way to break out this kind of like the binding?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Kevin. So I think for most VCs, they are restricted by their investment thesis. So when they raise the funds from their LPs, they have to also report to the regulators, and they are restricted to what they can invest in. So that is something that I think for most startups, if you are looking to raise funds from foreign investors, you will need to check. If that fund is only restricted to investing within, for example, a particular country, then even if you reach out to them, even if you have the best pitch, they won't be able to invest in you because under the regulations, they just cannot invest. But I would say that in Singapore, a lot of VCs are actually, they can invest outside of Singapore and Southeast Asia to the wider region like Japan, Korea, so on. So it's something that you have to do initial research on before you reach out to the investors.
Then what about you, Takeru? So do you have any experience to making the investment to the Korean companies? But if you have not, what holds you back to make the investment to Korean startups?
So thank you so much for your question. I think same as Johnson, our venture capital funds is very open for investing in Korean startups. And actually we are doing a couple of due diligence right now for Korean startups. But I think for Korean startups, it's quite important to know how Japanese venture capital operates in general. Because like we are kind of unusual regarding the investments in global startups. Because like most of the Japanese pure venture capitals don't invest in global startups. Like I can say maybe 80% of venture capitals only invest in Japanese startups. And that's coming from, number one is a kind of regulation. So there are kind of regulation of the venture capital funds on the like a number of investments in outside of Japan. So there is kind of cap for investments. Yeah, and number two is Japanese venture capital, like 60% of venture capital backed by Japanese corporates. So I think that is a very unique part of Japanese ecosystem because as far as I see, like most of our Asian countries, like a huge backup for venture capital ecosystem is usually governments, right? Yeah, but in Japan, it's more from corporates, and they look for not much in financial returns, more for strategies, like deal sourcing or collaboration opportunities, open innovation opportunities. And some manufacturing companies, they are totally okay with any startups or any countries, but like majority are not like that. So they just only work with Japanese startups or something. So that's why the LPs put some kind of restrictions on the number of investments for global startups. So yeah, I can say that there are restrictions on that. So it's quite important to tell that this VC is open for global investments or not, even before conversation. Yeah, maybe.
So I understand the challenges, but you think definitely we can tackle this kind of challenges to get the investment from the Japan, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Then here's the next question. So this is a question for the Takeru. So the Japanese business culture values the trust and the relationship, right? So how can overseas startup effectively build this kind of relations and trust with the Japanese VC and also Japanese partners as well?
Okay, that's a little bit tricky question for me because I think first thing is about language. I think, yeah, because like most of Japanese corporates or corporate venture capitals or venture capitals don't speak English in general. So majority are Japanese speakers. So in order to make trust and have a great communication with them, the first thing you have to do is speak Japanese or hire some person who can speak Japanese. Yeah, that's kind of a starting point. And the next step gonna be to make some tractions in Japan. Yeah, I think that's quite important because in Japan, same as maybe same as Korean ecosystem, there are so many corporate venture capitals. I think the Japanese venture capital market size is like 5 to 6 billion US dollar, and the 30% of money coming from corporate venture capital, and they are also sometimes open for global startups. So to make some network with them and to make some partnership deals, then puts a logo of corporates in the pitch deck to Japanese VCs. So that is kind of my tips for Korean startups to do so.
Okay, thank you. So, John, the Southeast Asia is known as the full of the diversity. So you have the 10 different countries, actually. All the countries are using the different languages, different religions. So how the overseas startup effectively navigating the Southeast Asian market, especially they want to break through the multiple countries at the same time?
Yeah. I think, yeah, Kevin, you are totally right. So Southeast Asia is a country, region with many different countries. Each country is very different from the other. Different cultures, different religions, different languages, different legal structures and regulations as well. So I think as much as we see Southeast Asia as a region, if you are really interested to penetrate into the Southeast Asia region, you need to first target particular countries within Southeast Asia. So for example, if you are a B2B company, you might be interested in Singapore because Singapore has 7,000 over MNCs in our small little country. And out of that 7,000 over, half of them are global or regional headquarters, meaning that they have the decision making power to do purchases or to invest in startups. So I think that's one example. And then if you are a B2C company, for example, you might be interested in Indonesia. Why? Because it's a very large market, and I think according to the World Economic Forum, they are predicted to be the fourth largest global economy by around 2030. So I think these are things that you need to do a bit of research before deciding which country in Southeast Asia to expand into. Even for mid-ventures, as much as we are headquartered in Singapore, but because we look at the Southeast Asia region, we also have offices in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and in Vietnam. Because you really need to be on the ground if you want to be able to tap into the local ecosystem. You need to be there either in person or you need to have employees on the ground who can speak the local language, who understand the local culture to really help you to penetrate the market.
So nowadays, many the Korean or other like countries companies actually they are trying to leverage Singapore as the hub. So do you think this is the right strategy or?
Yeah, so I might be biased here because I'm Singaporean, but I definitely think that Singapore is a good hub to expand into the rest of Southeast Asia. Why? Number one, there's a lot of funding in Singapore. So in Singapore itself, we are known as one of the key financial hubs globally. So according to one of the reports, right, Singapore is the third key global hub in terms of cities after, I think, New York and I forgot what's the other one, but also in US. So there's a lot of money in Singapore, and that's one. If you are looking to expand into the region, you might want to come to Singapore, set up base, and then raise funds locally from Singapore VCs, and after that, expand into the region. Second thing, why a lot of companies choose Singapore as a hub is because Singapore allows 100% foreign ownership. And 100% foreign ownership is not exactly allowed or so easily to be achieved in some of the other countries in Southeast Asia. So that's a second factor. Third factor is tax. So the corporate tax rates in Singapore is a lot lower. And because of that, it makes more sense to set up the hub in Singapore, and then from there look to expand regionally into the rest of Southeast Asia.
Okay, thank you. Then my next question is to, the differences between the fund from the US and also the fund from the Asia. So, John, so since you are seeing the many the overseas VCs from all over the world, what is the biggest difference the US fund and then the Singaporean fund?
Yeah, I think firstly to look at that, we need to look at the market. So the US market is really large, and most of the US investors, right, they'll primarily focus on the US startups right from the start. So if we are in Asia, I would say going into the US, unless you set up an entity there and you are there, it might not be so easy to access the funds in the US. Now, I'll just give some statistics, right? Just this morning, I was looking at a report, and they are saying that in the US, although there's a lot of VC funding, now, majority of that, I think about 60% is to white males. So the founders are white males. They are from Ivy League, they have Ivy League degrees, or they are from a top 20 university. So this is statistics, right? And so if you do not fit into this statistical mold, the chances of you raising funds in the US might be lower than usual. But if you look at Southeast Asia, or you look at Singapore, or you look at like Korea or Japan, I think in Asia is very different. The VCs in Asia are probably more open to investing within Asia and into Asian founders and startups as well. Yeah.
What about you, Takeru? Do you see any differences between the VC in the US and then VC in Japan?
I think my answer is going to be more the same as John's. Yeah, because in general, US market is quite huge, and US venture capital, also AUM is quite big. So in Japan, I think most of the investments coming from Japanese venture capital and investors. But if you look at US investors, the active ones are very big with very big AUMs. So they primarily focus after, I think, Series B or C or more later stage. So that means like our startups have to show more financial metrics or financial projections about, I don't know, multiple scenarios and a lot of risk uncertainties. So like they are very well established like markets and organizations in general. So I think that's kind of a strictness is a little bit different from our Japanese venture capitals in general. Yeah.
Then this is a following question. Then how the Asian startups can compete with the US tech startup in the global market? What do you think? Is it too tough?
So maybe I'll go first.
Sure.
I think there are definitely success cases, right? If you look at even on publicly listed stocks, Nvidia, right? The Jensen Huang, he's an Asian, right? And earlier on, I gave an example of one of the best pitches I've heard. Is by founders of this company called Iron Yun. That's his third startup, the founder's third startup. And his two previous companies were also listed on NASDAQ. So I think this goes to show that there are good Asian founders that can actually penetrate into the US market and eventually raise funds there. I think the question here is not so much about whether it is possible to do so. I think it's definitely possible to do so. I think the question is when is it the right time? So if you are an early stage company, it might be better to raise funds or focus more in your home country or in the Asia region until you are ready to expand, maybe Series A and above, and you have some good financial metrics to show. I think maybe that's where you can start exploring and looking at like US markets or like markets that are a bit more advanced.
Okay.
So I think in general, of course, there are going to be a probability to win over US startups, I think. Because if you look at the history, like I'm not sure whether I can say Toyota used to be startups or Honda used to be startups, but they could be kind of startups at that age. And somehow they won over US like competitors. So I think as a possibility, yes. But if we look at the software space, it's super challenging. Because in Japan, like some startups, after IPO stage or Billy data stage, they try to attack US markets. But so far, we have never seen some successful cases in US markets, the kind of fight between Japan and the US. So software B2C application is so challenging. But myself, I personally think maybe they don't have to fight in US. Like they can fight in Japan or Asia or some other countries. Because the US market is so large, so usually US startups pretty much focus on US markets for a long time, and then maybe going to European markets. Actually, they come to Asian markets at a very, very later stage in general. So maybe we can leverage that kind of our time difference, and then maybe going to I don't know, SEA or some other markets. That's my kind of thesis.
Yeah, thanks for answering the tricky question, yeah, to both of you. So Takeru, so what is the unique strength to Korean startups bring to the like a Japanese market? Is there any like a specific domain or technology to make the like a success in the Japan?
So I think maybe not specifically about Korea. In general, like we have, of course, a lot of our global startups entering Japanese market. So nowadays, a lot from Korea and a lot from Taiwan. As far as I see, maybe around 100 or more than that startups are trying to enter this market in 2024. So I see a lot of numbers there. And in general, maybe I can divide into two ways as a successful stories. Number one is the startup from the US, United States. And there is a startup called Persephone. They provide the carbon management software as a like SaaS style. So they became quite successful in that space in Japan because they made a partnership with some major Japanese banks. So they being invested by, I think it's Sumitomo Mitsui Bank, which is one of the biggest one. And they also made a partnership with almost all of the banking sectors. So that means like they made a kind of channel strategy by leveraging equity investments. And usually it's so challenging for global startups to enter the market because there is no networks or business channels or community. So investors can kind of be a supplement for that space. So that is a one success case. And another one, it's Korean startups called the Kannam Omni. Kannam Omni is, I'm not sure how much famous in Korea, but it's quite famous in Japan because like they provide a platform for consumers for plastic surgery. So of course, plastic surgery is very unique from Korea. I think a lot of Japanese young ladies travel to Korea for making the plastic surgeries. So already there was a demand in Japan and some other countries. So I think that's kind of business we cannot do that because after all, like that business requires a network in Korea for plastic surgery, hospitals, clinics, and some are kind of networking effects. So that's kind of our Korean unique culture-driven business. It's become successful quite often.
Okay. Then, John, what emerging technologies or sectors in Southeast Asia should like an overseas startup be watching for over next like 2-3 years?
Yeah, I think this question, I think most people will give the same answer. In the VC space, the AI boom has definitely been something that many VCs are starting to look at. So, I mean, this is a space that definitely will be looking. But I think the question is which part of the AI space, because it's so broad, right? Do we really see potential opportunities? Now, this is my own idea, but it's also something that I believe Y Combinator in the US also believes in, as I was reading a report. So the thing here is about AI bots. So I would say maybe about a decade ago, there was this entire hoo-ha about SaaS companies, right? There were a lot of unicorns that came out from SaaS startups. My personal belief is that in the coming 10 years, there'll be a lot of opportunities and unicorns coming out from this AI bot space. Now, why? Because I think unlike SaaS companies, AI bot companies will not only replace technology to make it even more efficient, but it could also potentially replace manpower to speed up certain processes and also help to reduce costs a lot more significantly. And because of that, I think maybe not just myself, maybe other investors like Y Combinator, etc. I think we believe that companies in this space or building towards this in this direction might stand a good chance because the market itself is so huge. And if you can get a slice of the pie, yeah, it could prove to be something big.
Okay. So actually, I prepared dozens of more questions, but since we have a very limited time, I want to see your the advice for Korean startup from each of you. Yeah, maybe like a 10 second, 20 second. Yeah.
So maybe I go first. I think the beauty of our Korean startup ecosystem is that there were huge supports from governments, like go-to-market programs for Japan or SEA or any region. So that's free. So why don't you use that as a first step? Then maybe you can make some communities, and then maybe you can connect with local venture capitals or corporates. So I think I highly recommend you to apply for that kind of thing, because in Japan we don't have much. So I really envy Korean ecosystem from that perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Kawashima-san. So, I totally agree with Kawashima-san, and I think for me, I think Korean startups are very well positioned because you have a very big local market, and because you are also located in a very prime area within Asia itself, you can expand into many different parts of Asia. Like for example, Japan is next door. Southeast Asia is not too far away. Even like China, India, it's all like in the neighboring regions, and there's a lot of opportunities there. So my take is that if you are a Korean startup, if after capturing your local market, do think carefully and do your market research carefully to identify where else you might be able to get into and penetrate into, and thereafter find the right partners to work with, do some market research, go onto the ground, and try to reach out to people on the ground to help you to enter into these markets.
Okay. The huge thank you to Takeru and John for sharing your valuable insight, and I hope you find some interesting startup to make the investment for Korean startup. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
감사합니다. Thank you.
네,